This is the Benefits Buzz Podcast, your weekly pulse on what's happening in the world of employee benefits. Brought to you by your friends at WEX, who believe in simplifying benefits for everyone. Now listen up and let's get buzzed. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Benefits Buzz. I'm your host, Eric Pila, and I'm joined by my co-host, my interim co-host, but rock star, Hayden Goethe. Hayden, how you been doing, my friend?
Doing good. Can't wait to dive into this topic, Eric. I think this is one that neither one of us really has a lot of familiarity with, so this could be really interesting.
I know. Not to leave a bit of a cliffhanger, but before we get into our topic, I do want to say we are still working from home. You'll notice the back of we've been in here for almost 2 years now, dude, trying to do this podcast. And I want to thank everyone who's been listening, who's been welcoming them into our beautiful homes. For those of you who watch our YouTube videos instead of listening, but we want to thank you. And if you do love the Benefits Buzz podcast, we would do a big favor and ask that you give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Apple Music, whatever you're using. That's the best way for us to get found. We are inching near 20,000 views and listens, Hayden. So we have a huge milestone. I want to thank you for all those who have been listening over our 4 seasons, now on season 5. And we hope that we can expose this to more HR professionals or people you think that would love the show. With that shameless plug, let's jump into our podcast. Hey, I don't know about you, but one of the most awkward things for me when I leave businesses is the traditional exit interview. I always get nervous. Am I gonna tell all of why I'm leaving, or do I not? But it just depends what kind of juice I want to bring to the exit interview. I don't know about you.
No, totally. I mean, I haven't had very many of them, honestly, but yeah, you're never quite sure what to expect. So
it's true. It's true.
It's always a memorable experience, and I do feel like whenever you get done with one, everybody in the room wants to know how it went.
It's true. So. How did it go? And they're always interested. And you totally called me out. I probably had a couple more than I probably should. But, but they're always good. But the funny thing is, we're talking what I would say is almost the antithesis, or the opposite of that. So instead of today talking about these exit interviews, we're actually talking about stay interviews. Yes, that's right. Stay interviews. And before we did this show, I had zero clue that these things were happening. Basically, the opportunity to have what we call retention interviews. What are we doing to really keep, and this is going to be a huge theme, as I know everyone's drowning in, how do we keep our really great talent within their companies, and retention, and the great resignation. That's going to be a buzzword I don't want to say, I'm certain, as we go into the episode or into the season, but it is a real thing. And so I want to dive into what are stay interviews and how can HR pros really use these to help keep great talent. And to do so, we've got a fantastic guest. I want to welcome Chelsie Camp. She's an HR business partner here at WEX on the health division. Chelsie, welcome to Benefits Buzz.
Thank you, Eric. I'm so excited to talk with you guys about this.
Thank you. Well, we're excited to dive in because, again, sometimes I feel I kind of have an idea of what the topic's going to be. And we kind of joke, sometimes I almost feel like I'm so well versed in the industry by now that I kind of know what some of the answers might be. But we were kidding. I literally have no idea what stay interviews are. I have no idea beyond what I think their goals might be. But I can't wait to share with our listeners, how do you do them? What's the intention? What are some tips and tricks for doing so? So let's just dive right in, Chelsie. I have to know, just high level question, what are retention interviews?
Absolutely. So really the way we view it here at WEX is it's a good pulse check of where our employees are at. So us as an HR team, we do those standard interviews, the hiring interviews of what do you look for in a company? What keeps you motivated? Those types of things. And then on the flip side, like you mentioned, we do exit interviews. What's broken? What could we have done to keep you? But we in the health division have about 2,000 employees right here in the middle that we're not hearing feedback from. So I've been doing these stay interviews. I'm about 170 to 200 of them in different departments. And what we're doing is really having those one-on-one conversations in a safe space with HR of, really, how are you doing? How's the team doing? What's the culture like? What can we do to help you? Really diving in to get that real true feedback from employees. And like I said, in a truly safe space.
So would you say the goal of these interviews is to take the temperature of employees? I mean, and how much does employee retention play into this, just in terms of, a lot of businesses are facing that challenge today. I would love to know, like, both the why behind them, but also like when you'd decide to start doing them too, and what might have been the inspiration for it.
Absolutely. So you mentioned it earlier, the Great Resignation. Last year, we experienced a lot of turnover. And my job, we have different HR VPs in our division. My job specifically is mostly around retention. So I do a lot of statistics. I do a lot of turnover data. I do comp analysis, things like that. So I was in my one-on-one this summer with my supervisor, and we were just talking about turnover. And we felt like there was a gap between what we were seeing in the data and what's truly going on with the actual culture on the team. So it was kind of a light bulb moment. We've heard of stay interviews, but it hadn't necessarily blown up like it has in the last couple of months with HR. And I really went, would it be okay if I did this, if I kind of ran on this? And she totally gave me the runway to just go and do. So I developed a process really looking to get that true feedback. A key part is really getting the senior leadership buy-in and really making sure that the leadership team is on the same page as us, because the worst thing we can do is ask for feedback and then do nothing with it. So really me as HR stepping in, that neutral third party, helping to facilitate that conversation and then still keep anonymous. So really making sure that employees feel like I'm not going to get backlash if I share this information. So I really don't provide specifics on the employees, but more of how's the team doing? What pulse is the team as a broader, as opposed to the individual?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love to hear kind of like it was fun to hear the origin story, right? Of how this came to fruition and the inspiration behind it. And the data nerd in me loves that. It was like, wait a second here, these numbers aren't matching up. There's got to be something to this. He said you're 150 or so roughly interviews into here. So my first question's got to be like, well, we said we have 2,000 people just in our health division. We have 150. How are you choosing? Like, who are the lucky people you sit down and have conversations with? What's the thought process behind who you decide to have these conversations with?
Absolutely. So I am a data nerd as well. Like, I love it. I love data science. I have a sociology degree. So a lot of this goes back to that, of looking at demographics, looking at different types of employees. So what I look at when I start a group, I look under one senior leader. So we have a number of senior leaders. So I break it out by basically department. What I look for is different positions, different leaders, different tenure. And then me being at this company for over 10 years, I also know people's employment history because I used to recruit as well. So I also look at, have they been hired externally, or do they have experience within the organization that they could compare and contrast? So like saying, hey, I used to be in operations. When I was in operations, I truly enjoyed A, B, C, D. Now in my current role, we don't have that. So really trying to round out that demographic to make sure that we're getting a diverse, pool of employees. So yeah, that's really how I figured that out. They say that 10% is statistically significant. So I try to get up to about 25% at least of that department and pool that amount.
I like that. So you're thinking of a true, like almost like a true random sample. So you're getting this variety. You're taking some of the people that have been here for a long time. It was interesting because I was curious because I didn't know if there was like, in addition to maybe a random sample, are you identifying when people are leaving that there are certain jobs or certain departments that are experiencing higher turnover that you really want to dive? So is it a true just random, or again, I'm probing you here because I want to know, are there like, wait a second, we're seeing some trends in either certain divisions under certain team managers or under departments that we might want to dive more? Does that play into it as well? Sorry to push you on that, but I got to know.
No, absolutely. And I'm an open book on this topic. We don't do anything unintentionally. We're always intentional about what we do. We want to make sure if we're doing something, it brings true value. So not only do I do hotspots, is what I call them.
Okay.
I identify, is there a team that we have a high turnover rate? And that's why I also look at per supervisor as well, of is there one supervisor higher than another? That we really need to see, why do we keep losing under this supervisor? Maybe they have too many direct reports, or maybe they need some additional trainings or some resources we can provide them. So we do look at where should we really focus on, but then I also want to make sure, my big thing is not to leave our employees who are our steady eddies behind. So not only does the squeaky wheel get the oil, but we also want to make sure that we're not leaving people in the dust, even if they're okay with how things are going. They're not on the verge of quitting, but they still have good value, and we still want to make sure that we're hearing from them to make sure that they don't flip to a red employee and then we lose them.
How open are employees in these retention interviews? I mean, do you find that they're pretty willing in general to talk to you? Because I'm sure for a lot of them, this is probably a new experience. And then, I was also thinking too, like, has your strategy in terms of the type of questions you ask evolved at all since you started doing these? Just because, just saying as somebody who, like, I came into this industry with a journalism background. And so kind of learned after a while, like, try to avoid questions that would get you like yes answers or no answers, and try to get them to like try to explain things. I'm guessing you're probably in a similar position too.
You kind of hit the nail on the head there. So we could do this for a survey. We could just send out a survey saying, how are you? We do that actually. We send pulse surveys, but we don't have that ability to ask probing questions after that survey question. So that's really why I set this up as an interview as opposed to just sending out surveys or questionnaires. To your other part of the question, how honest and open, it depends on the employee. My job as HR is to set the stage of, this is what I'm doing and this is why, and then this is who I am, because honestly, there are a lot of employees who've never met me, and getting an IM or a meeting request from HR is scary, and that's fair. That's totally fair depending on what kind of experiences they've had. But me being here, being present, being on video, really setting the stage, saying, listen, this is my process, this is how I do this, and this is how I provide feedback, usually puts employees at ease to know that it's okay to share my truth and nothing negative is going to happen because of this. So it really depends on the employee. Also, we have a lot of Midwestern employees. So we have a lot of people who don't like talking about compensation and don't like complaining. So really meeting them where they're at is important to say, what, I don't do this for free either. I work to support my family, and that's why I'm here. So it's okay to talk about compensation, and it's okay to bring that up.
Yeah, you bring up such good points. Right? You have to make it you have to extend it, right? I'm joking because I can imagine like you get this any email from HR, gives you shivers, right? No offense, HR pros, but like you don't know, right? Your mind just goes to the negative. And I think, right, the ability to make it, this is a safe place, here are my objectives, and creating a space where they can open up and feel free to be open and honest seems really, really, really paramount in order to really get what you wanted to hear. So thanks so much for explaining that. I think that's great tips for those that maybe want to try and incorporate and implement retention things. So can I be your guinea pig? I want to make it tangible. I want to make it tangible for people. So bear with me. Pretend that this is just for a brief moment. Pretend that we're doing a stay interview with me. Could we do like a mock one quick? Could you ask me like maybe a couple questions, or maybe just kind of like, what are some of the things that you might ask so that people can kind of hear, what should I be diving into and learning more about?
Absolutely. So I have a list of questions, kind of going back to Hayden's question of how I've determined these questions and have I adapted them? Yes, the answer is yes, I have, but I did a lot of research in the front end. So I have a handful of questions, but I'll maybe ask you a couple. So for the first one, when you log in the morning and you think, I'm really excited to do this, what is that?
Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous right now.
Don't need to be.
No, this is great. No, that's fantastic. I don't know if I'm supposed to answer or totally comment, but I think when I log in first, it's like the anxiety of, what didn't I get accomplished? How many emails have I gotten overnight? And then what are the things I want to do? And what am I going to push off to the end of the day that I don't want to do? Right. Like I think about that, but it's a good question. If I comment on the question too, I think getting to how are you feeling? How do you approach the day? Do you have anxiety? Do you get excited? What do you do? Right. I'm guessing that's part of the hope there.
Yes, absolutely. So it's really looking forward to what are the highlights? What do they really enjoy doing about the role? What really fills their bucket? And what can we keep doing in order to make them feel satisfied with their work?
Eric, the correct answer was podcast, by the way.
I can't, that's true. I failed. All right, I'm 0 for 1. Maybe let's try another one, Chelsie.
Well, and that's the thing is a lot of employees say, like, I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but here's my answer. And my response to that is I'm looking for whatever is your truth. I don't have an agenda here. I want to hear truly what you think and feel. Usually the next question I ask is, on the flip side of that, when you log in and you see it in your inbox, what is that one thing that makes you go, I don't even want to deal with that today?
Oh, yes. It's gotta be roadblocks, right? Like, either like, delays on, answers I need to move a project forward, or on a coworker who's, not meet a bit prickly, for lack of a better term, in terms of like, why can't we just work together towards this? So, like those kind of things that would get those anxiety things I talked about in question 1. Like, this is so funny. I didn't really even focus on the stuff I love. I went to like the stuff that gives me, heartache. But I think those are the things, right? And I get that too with this question. I'm certain it's all about like, what are the things you fear? What are the things that trouble you? What are the things that are preventing you, right, from finding that joy in your job, right?
Absolutely. And really, you kind of also alluded to how I kind of rank. So my actual process is I have an Excel spreadsheet and I put the questions in the columns and then the answers per employee in the rows. So I don't even link it to any employee's name, any demographic. It's basically a tab that this is this role and these are these answers. So after I'm done with my interview, I take, the quantity and the quality of the answers. I take the body language, I take what they focus on, and then I develop, okay, maybe they're a green employee, so they're good to go. They're very satisfied with their role. We're good there. Yellow, of maybe there are some concerns. They have some issues with the role. There's some roadblocks there. And then I have red, of these are our retention risks. These are the ones that we need to focus on. So that's really how I develop what the team's at, what's that pulse. Maybe they're a red team or maybe they're yellow. Really helping leaders understand how much risk we really have with this team.
Just out of curiosity, hearing those couple of questions, like in general, like how many questions would you say you ask in a retention interview, and how long do those interviews usually take?
Yeah, so I have about 18 questions.
Okay.
A lot of the time people answer questions in a question, so then I can skip over to the next and just type in the answer in the column. But sometimes I drill into it a little bit too, of maybe they left it a little vague, or I have all right, that seems like a theme. Let's expand on that and really kind of dive into it. So typically it lasts a half an hour, but I've had them last over an hour of what's my time constraint, what's their time constraints, and maybe we're on a good path and they really just need somebody to listen to their ideas, or we're brainstorming, because that's another piece of this too, is I don't just provide that feedback to senior leadership. I also bring back some solutions, some potential solutions. So maybe one of the solutions is, hey, we're missing this training, of this process seems really hard for the team. Why don't we bring this training? Or maybe it's, I think we have a role that we need here that seems that they could handle this, this, and this that most employees find very difficult. So really kind of having that collaboration of how can we make this experience better, really.
So are you marking teams and individuals as like green and red? Is that what you said? Okay.
So I'll do the line of the answer. So like I said, there's no employee data tied to it. It's just the raw data. But I'll do that font is green if that employee is, in a good spot, or red. And then overall, I'll look at how many greens and how many reds are on and yellows, and really kind of develop, okay, so this is the average and this is really where the team's at.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's great to hear like how you use the information, right? You're using it not only to get a pulse of the company, you're getting a pulse of the team, but then you're able to share some of that. Again, it feels very anonymous, right? With potential leadership or managers. Does it go that far where you're kind of saying, here's the pulse I'm getting for your team? And then you also have potential suggestions for them, or will those suggestions for the person you just interviewed? I'd love to hear how far you actually go deep into that.
Yeah. So in the actual interview itself, sometimes I'll come up with an idea of like, hey, this works for another team. Do you think this would work for your team? So I get their feedback there for the actual employees. But like I said in the beginning, senior leadership buy-in is crucial. So some actual frontline supervisors may be kind of nervous, honestly, as to what the feedback's going to be. Maybe it's going to be that they're not leading effectively or missing the mark there. So they can be kind of nervous of, is this going to negatively impact me in my role? So that's why I kind of go straight to the senior leader. At the end of my process, I develop a PowerPoint. I meet with the senior leader, and usually they're, VP or whoever else wants to be involved, and give them a full department view. So I say, all right, so this department's here, this department's here. Here's what my potential resolutions are. Here's some suggestions that we've seen successful in other teams. And I also do a comp analysis, because that is crucial, of not only are we just getting the feedback from employees, but one of the number one reasons people are leaving right now is pay. And that's fair. Like I said, we're here to support our family. So that's totally okay. So where are we at with this? Specifically, our long tenured employees. I want to make sure that our employees who are staying in the role aren't getting left behind when newer hires are actually getting hired on at a higher rate. So I provide that comp analysis as well to the senior leader. And then I have a charge to them of, we cannot just ask for feedback and do nothing about it. So you need to get in front of your leadership team and then get in front of the employees themselves. And really the employees, they're not looking for, this is the answer, this is how we're going to solve it. Sometimes it's, hey, this was a theme and we don't know what we're going to do about it, but we're going to engage you as a team to figure out how to make this better. And that's okay. Just making sure that they're closing the loop with the team members so they know what happened with this process.
Chelsie, I have a huge smile on my face. I'm in absolute love with what you do and what you do at the company. I had no idea this was taking place here at our own company I work for, but everything I'm hearing and learning seems like it is so valuable and so important. Not only for your department, but really for the company and for managers and teams and like individuals to feel heard. There's so many wins. So I hope the HR pros that are listening are like, they've got to implement something like this. It just seems there's so much value. And you said something right at the end there that I want to hit on. WEX just sponsored a study by Greenwald Research to learn more about, why employees are leaving during this Great Resignation. And one of the most cited reason for leaving were they were unhappy with pay. So you talked about that compensation leveling piece. Is that what you're seeing here? Are you seeing the majority of it, or is it, there's so many things happening right now, flexible workspace and all the things that people might leave? What are you seeing here? And what are you hearing more importantly?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really a mix of things, but I would say pay is a consistent. One of my questions is what might tempt you to leave, which some leaders are nervous for me asking that, of like, they feel like I'm kicking the hornet's nest, but we truly need to figure out what is that one thing that would take you away from us. And for us as WEX, we have a really good culture that we really focus on that. We want to support our employees. We want to have different avenues for them to invest in the company, whether it be just different groups. So a lot of the time what I hear is pay, because culture is pretty good. But if somebody pays more, at the end of the day, that's why we work. So I hear a lot of pay. I hear some, well, maybe my dream job comes up. And then I'll go. And then sometimes it's honestly, the job's not a fit for me. And for me, when I'm doing that stay interview, it's all right, so the job's not a fit, but is there something else here? Is there somewhere else in this division that we can plug you in that actually would really fill your bucket? So kind of trying to not sell the company again on them, but also making sure that if we don't need to lose good talent if we don't have to. We can plug them in at a different team too.
What would you say the process looks like in terms of like follow up? I know you mentioned you don't specifically track like the employees' names who you're meeting with, but like, is there any process at all in terms of like following up with that employee if maybe some actions were taken just to see if things have changed at all, or even team follow up structure too, if you have anything on that?
Absolutely. So I've had a couple of different situations just based on the senior leadership. Some of them have come back a week or 2 weeks later and said, hey, can I run my solutions past you to see if it meshes up with what you saw in the interviews? Absolutely willing to do that. I've played around with a couple months later. I've sent an email out of, hey, how's it going? Was the experience positive for you? Were there good changes? Or do you think that there's something missing in my process? Because again, I want to ask feedback on myself of, I don't want this to not be beneficial to employees. So I've also done that. I did that 3 months, and I think I'm going to stretch that out a little farther because change takes some time. But yes, my intention is to fully close that loop too with employees of, do you see value in this process? Did you enjoy it? What were the negatives? Was there change? And I think the majority of employees truly take that opportunity to say, I do see value in this, and I do appreciate that you took that time. So it's really nice. And it helps me know that, okay, all the time and energy that I'm putting into this is truly making a difference in employees day to day.
Yeah. I gotta know, do you see a difference between, maybe if it's not yourself, but the coworkers that are doing the exit interviews, are you seeing the same type of like candidness happening in these two, or are there different, topics like, like the exit interview is like, oh, too late. What could we have done? And now it's like, hey, we're in the middle of this and we're on this journey together. What are you seeing between those two and the benefits of each of them?
Absolutely. So one of the other HR VPs on our team is the one who does the exit. So I work very closely with her. And I would say it also ranges too, because sometimes they're just done and they don't have any emotional bandwidth to provide feedback to a company where they're done and invested in their new company. But I would say it's probably pretty equal for those that do provide that feedback for that candidness of, this is truly where I'm at. This is truly what I need from a company, and this is where it was failing.
This was so good, Chelsie. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, kind of pulling back the curtain and really just showing us and telling us what you do. I just think there's so much learning in here, and I hope everyone listening was taking copious notes, and I'm sure we'll have some great things in our show notes as well to help with this. But Chelsie, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you coming on the show. I feel so much more educated on what a stay interview is, and I'll be eagerly waiting for my chance to talk to you, Chelsie.
Absolutely.
Yeah, now that I got a little warm up with some of those questions you threw at me, I think I'm all ready now. So
absolutely. I'm happy to be here. It's my baby, this process, and I really truly believe in it. And I will be getting to your guys' department hopefully soon.
I love it. Thanks so much, Chelsie. Take care.
Thank you.
WEX is in the business of simplifying benefits for everyone. Now, although we certainly hope our podcast sparks some aha moments, like that was pretty cool, but of course we cannot provide legal, investment, or financial advice. And, well, therefore, nothing shared in this podcast should be interpreted as such. We encourage you to seek out appropriate professional advice regarding your plans. Hey, congratulations! You made it through our disclaimer. Thanks for listening.